Well, the story so far, in the Second War of the Roses, things started off really slowly. Then they started seesawing back and forth, but in terms of battles won, lost, whatever. But the Lancastrians have gotten the upper hand in the last couple of battles. And you can see they have a lot of lords on the board. They've knocked out, in the first war, they knocked out York. In this war, they've knocked out Devon, Warwick, and Pembroke. Really, decimating, well, more than that, bisecting, bisonating? The Yorkist lords, so that there's only 4 left out of a war that had quite a few lords on both sides. But for all of that, they're losing the game. The Yorkists have more of the public opinion, and the way these scenarios are designed, at least within the campaign game, as opposed to, and let's take a peek at this. So I know how Henry VI works, but let's see about some of these others, some of the other historically driven ones. So Henry VI has victory thresholds that change over the course of the game. If we look here, Towton is just a battle scenario, I think. Again, we have a very short scenario with Somerset's return. Warwick's Rebellion, another big one. The victory thresholds, again, drop down from the 40 initial to a 30. And it makes sense in a short scenario that you say, look, one side or the other has to win at the end of the 3 years. These aren't the short scenarios, but the regular war scenarios. And My Kingdom for a Horse actually does not appear to have that reduction of victory threshold. How long will it last? This goes much less time. This starts on June, July. It lasts only 6 turns, which gives it a different kind of situation. What is anything about victory here? Victory threshold is very high, so I don't know what to say about that. But my feeling is that each of these scenarios within the campaign should really have a decreasing victory check, because that shows a war weariness that makes it easier for the side who's winning the public opinion to win. And then B, not end unless somebody reaches that victory check. Not just end from X number of years or whatever. If need be, just keep lowering this, so that it gets to a point where a significant advantage in the public opinion would drive the other side from there. And that may go way down, right? If you want to make this correct. On the other hand, the idea of Margaret is going to just pack her stuff and leave at the end of 3 years, if the Yorkists maintain even just a slight 1 or 2 points of public opinion advantage, is just really hard to swallow. If the only reason that there is that advantage is basically that the Yorkists are able to avoid battle and keep running around. It's one thing if they're, dominating the countryside and getting a great deal of influence throughout. And, even if Margaret has the larger army, she's vastly unpopular. That's not the case here, though. It's not that big a difference. It's not like it's pushing against the victory check wherever that marker may have dropped to. Right now, it looks significant. Some of that is because maintaining a large army in the field costs you, right? Like I said, this is a weird sort of economic game in a lot of ways, where dominating the IP is the important thing. But even given that, I just have a really hard time accepting that under these circumstances that Margaret would pack up and leave. Now, she hasn't done it yet, but we could well get to a point where Gloucester, especially because of his high command rating, is able to evade the enemy, may actually be losing influence in a way that shows that the momentum's against him, that he is going to lose the war, that the population is turning against him, but still have that slight advantage, and she would pack up and leave. And that is just, you know, it's one thing if this pushes so far that it hits against a barrier and you say, yeah, you know, and even if it's a decreasing barrier, I can't keep, you know, I don't have the support of the population. Enough of the population is against me that I'm just going to go into exile and hope to be able to stage a comeback. That's a very different case from winning all the battles and putting yourself in a position where you are actually gaining influence every turn in relation to your enemy. I just don't have a way of explaining how this track, the way it works and the way it's designed, reflects anything like the reality that I understand. Anyway. All right, here we are, I guess, Tuesday morning. I really should be, today was rainy. Tuesday is supposed to, today being yesterday, Tuesday is supposed to be better weather. I'm hoping that I can get out and return my GMT extra game tomorrow, today, whatever. But if it's anything like every other day, I'll be getting up too late to do it. Today it was 7 p.m. It is really getting to be a problem. And one reason why dancing is good for me is it means one day a week I'm locked onto a schedule other than raid. Speaking of raid, I'm up here because I've mainly ran out of a lot of my points for the day. Okay, great. But I've got like an hour and a half before what they call clan versus clan. What it really is kind of a spend-a-thon. You don't have to necessarily spend money for it, and I don't, but you have to spend resources that you save up for it to beat the other clan who's also done the same thing, saved up money. You know, spending money and spending resources they've saved and whatever. It's kind of a goofy way of doing challenges, but anyway. So here we are in the final year levy phase, and to gain Lord's influence turn, which means the Lancastrians with all their lords on the board are in a really good place to try to smush this point value a little bit more in their favor, but things are not that badly aligned towards them. So the points are likely to start flowing in their direction. Just even if the Yorkists manage to get both their lords, they just don't have many anymore. They've lost so many in this game. But let's draw. This levy, Yorkist Lord, any one Yorkist Lord has lordship +3. That is fucking huge, right? If I had somebody good like Warwick around, I would get lots of influence rolls and whatnot that would be coming at a high value. These guys... But I can levy, a lot of stuff, I guess. The commons, this levy, each Yorkist levies troops action may add up to 2 extra militia from the pool. Generally not a very useful thing. I look at my lords and I'm like, well, if I do a levy, I may want to. I don't have a whole I don't have a lot of space. I'll be going up from 4 to 6, which is the limit of feed 2 anyway, or feed 1 anyway. I don't want to bust into feed 2 with some extra militia. But if I was hammered and had very little left of a force, it could end up, adding 4 units instead of 2 or whatever in a location. Let's go here. Leeward battle lines, I love these, especially since I want to fight. And then the Universal Arang. We had this before. Did I pronounce it as badly last time? Louis XI, a cunning king. Select 2 Yorkist mustered vassals. Their lords check influence for each. Now, this is interesting. This maybe I have to look up. No, I don't. There's no vassals. But normally when you check influence, you have to pay. Here it would be involuntary. That could actually win the Lancastrians the game if they were close to the victory check, maybe. I don't know. Which is why I say I'd have to look it up, because maybe you don't have to pay for this check. You would kind of think it's a little weird that we would. Failure disbands the vassal, but there is no vassal. So, that is that. And payments. Oh no, we're out of coinage. Are we screwed? We're going to have to pay attention to the coinage situation, because what we don't want to have happen is to keep lords to get the points for them and then end up costing ourselves more points because their troops revolt or whatever. Lords. Probably want to keep all lords unless we have a problem. Now let's look over here. What's going on here? I can tax London. Requires an influence check. I can tax Canterbury. Okay. I think we've got enough tax available to us that we don't have to worry. Probably enough to get us through the entire war. So, and since everybody here has a buck except for Northumberland, and he has some tax capability, want to keep him on the board. He's worth 4 points at the end of the turn. Good enough. So, yes, we will pay all, which means it goes 3 more in favor of the Yorkists. Too many lords are supporting the Lancastrians. Oh my, Margaret is preparing to leave England for that. Again, that is just a consequence of some of the core systems in a way that I kind of look at it and say, well, that sure is weird, but what is really weird is the fact that she would just leave due to having a bad balance. Look, she's going to make up those points, right? Wise play can make sure that you make reasonable points off your lords, and not taxing your lords and forcing them to fight, and maybe discouraging them and whatnot, keeping them in the field. You can make arguments, hand-wavy arguments, but arguments that, yeah, the fact that she's maintaining all her loyal lords in the field may be causing grumbling, and she may be losing support due to that. And, represented by this, and that all makes sense. And it's like, that may be bad enough that it could actually cause her to lose her cause. What doesn't make sense is if I'm at a net gain of support each turn, yet still can't get it over that line by the end of the year. And that looks like a real possibility, and the thing the Yorkists are going to play for here. Why? Well, because I do take winning each particular war as important, as opposed to I'm just going for the campaign. If I'm just going for the campaign, screw it. What I want to do is probably... So the best way to win the campaign the quickest is probably to lose the first 2 battles, the first 2 wars, by making huge mistakes and just making sure that you have all your heirs and everything available for that 3rd war. That's just my guess, but whatever. Okay. And lots of babbling, not a lot of play. Stop that, asshole. Okay. What about my vassals? Those are all special. The only one I have is Westmoreland. I don't have to move him. So that's all good. We're on muster, and we have some interesting facets. We have this, which I'm almost certainly not going to do. not going to use. But this other one, yes, I do want to use it. Salisbury, probably safe to bring in. March, I don't know about that, man. And, you know, here's the thing. What would actually happen? Like, there's a real question here. If Richard gloriously wins this war and Edward never showed up and never fought for his family's rights, you know, I wouldn't put it past Richard to have arranged to be made king in place of oh, I wonder what that was. I hope that was just the wire. It scared the shit out of me. It sounded like it was above, and it's a noise I didn't recognize. I would not put it past Richard to like put himself forward ahead of his older brother. Yeah, that'll cause problems, but it'll be different problems, right? And just coming up with different storylines. The fact that Edward has never even bothered to take up arms for himself here. Wow. All right. Just that big bonus card over on Gloucester for various reasons. I grabbed extra influence and command for Rutland. He's so useless. I need to improve him there. I'm grabbing Southerners. I'm not sure, but I'm not that far, right? I've only got 1, 2 areas right now, but I'm sitting on another. Never mind. Never mind. He's not doing anything. He's sitting in enemy territory. So screw him. I've already rolled dice for Gloucester to bring Salisbury in. He grabbed this, which gets him an extra coin when mustering. Hey, whatever. And I grabbed myself Suffolk. Suffolk was kind of the last choice. I'm hoping not to have to fight a battle, but you know, if I have to, having someone out to here will definitely help. So that's my muster phase, my attempt to cheat with Rutland. I just discarded those cards. Screw it, I'm not going to be able to take them. Oh boy, do we have a lot to try to muster here. One big question is, what about Exeter? Do I want to bring him in, right? I mean, I can bring him in, gain a point for the Gainlord's influence, or gain 2 points for Gainlord's influence at the end of this turn. Lose a point next turn if I choose to keep him on the board, but I don't have to. So what would happen if I just recycle lords? Well, he would show up way back here. Actually, he would show up off the map, off the calendar. So, you know, I would basically be gaining 2 points if I dismiss him. A very, very temporary point gain without any real, you know, and in doing so, I would get rid of him for the rest of the game, basically. Is that worth it? Maybe, but maybe it's worth it over here instead. Of course, right now, I'm at a point where I have all these lords, all these different lordship points, all this capability to muster. This might be the turn to do it and just say, screw it. You know, I've got enough lords on the map. I'll try to keep what I can. I am at some interesting positions, though, with things like Northumberland here. And, well, here's the thing. Sure, it costs, you know, maybe I get 2 influence off him that I gain, but it's going to cost me at least 1 to try to convert him, and, you know, 2 for a 5 out of 6 chance. You know, it may be better off just to say screw it and build up what I can. So again, it's the economic decisions based on this track, which I'm not objecting to. Like, I just find it kind of interesting that I'm playing a more economic game, one of the routes to victory, and perhaps the most likely or the most dominating one. Because battles are hard to bring about, right? And there's luck involved and all kind of shit like that. If you can outplay on the economic, you can force the other person into a battle that he doesn't want to fight, or maybe is at a disadvantage in, Or you can maybe avoid the battle and still win that economic victory, as it were. Anyway, I got a lot to think about over here. I grabbed a boat with Gloucester. Do I need that? Because I could take the Southerners for that. But you know, I just don't think that I'm going to be able to get the South. I think Margaret's going to put too much of a pressure on me to get the South. And I can always take it next turn. The first thoughts is, I looked through the cards, and I only found 3 that I'm at all interested in. Something for Northumberland, man? I thought there was a Northumberland card. Maybe it was only in the first deck, and it's not here. Interesting. Anyway, the 3 cards that I have, the only lords I can put them on, I can put this on Oxford, but Oxford is full. The only lord I can put any of these on is Somerset, and I only have 1 slot for him. So the choice is here. Veteran of the French Wars gives me Valor +2. The other one I was thinking about was Picculus. The Lord's Men-at-Arms have a heavier armor. But you know, I'm worried about not being able to bring the enemy to fight more than I am about winning the fight. So I think what I'm going to do is take the council member card, because that gives me another influence each turn of the game, and that is a really potent add-on. I'm in at these in little bits because I have so many lords. Jasper Tudor grabbed a cart, actually a pair of carts, and a ship. That gives me the capability to sail, and just gives me a great deal more strength, I think, in terms of potential threats. Although he's on the wrong coast and everything, I'm probably going to just disband him. But he's not going to do anything for me, so whatever I muster with him, I might as well just do it. Yeah, sure, I could grab more cities and try to cancel this out or something. But I got a lot of lords and only 4 cards that I get to play this turn. So he's probably going to actually pass this turn and end up disbanding next turn after paying his troops. Northumberland, I have to use a card for. I have to tax with him. If I'm going to tax, I probably want to grab some supplies as well. And I grabbed him a military card just because, yeah, I'm kind of close to Salisbury there. So what the hell? That fills me out in terms of cards because I'm choosing to do this one. So the rest of my actions, yeah, quite possibly going to be boats and supply elements, because again, I don't want to get my troops above that 6. That just makes it hard to operate these lords. They require more coin and they require more provender, and I'm not flush in either. Indeed, that's what I did. I filled out the rest of the points with carts and ships. There's not going to be another waste turn, so there's less reason than at some points, but I just want that mobility and whatnot. And I don't want to get troops. I could have mustered a vassal. I certainly could have grabbed Exeter. I got my reasons for not doing that. Remember, it's like, yeah, it's going to cost me. I just don't want to use influence, right? But keeping the mobility of this force as high as possible seems like a really important choice. Had I had room for the Harbingers here, that might make sense, but then I'd have to give this up, and that directly impacts my victory conditions. So we flip this over, and I go down and check to see how much time I have before raid. I'm probably going to settle down and read a little bit. I'm working on Border Reavers right now. Oh, it's hard to understand just reading it because it is too much of a Euro. Like, very, very procedural rules and all systems that are completely new. So I'm like reading it and not really grasping what the fuck's going on. When I play it, I probably will have to play a practice game before I do it on video, which I really hate doing because I like capturing, you know, the struggle of a game. But you know, with the levying campaigns, I had to do it too, right? There's enough new that it's hard to grasp. Hey, what is actually going on in this game? You know, I've gotten pretty good at not just grasping, you know, your very traditional games like an area game or a hex and counter game that I've seen a lot of, but it kind of grasping, hey, what a game is about just by reading the rules. But some of these, I'm just like, yeah, I know what that game's about, and I knew what the levying campaigns are about, but I don't know how I'm gonna find to fuck the game up. And the more that you're dealing with new mechanisms and whatnot, you know, I mean, Imperial Struggle was the same way, right? When you're dealing with new designs that are very, very different and that express their ideas completely differently from other games, it is tough to get a grasp on what you should be doing and whatnot. Sometimes that's fun to play through on the video. Sometimes not so much. I find myself less and less doing the kind of explicit planning. I feel like the game actually doesn't reward me for it the way I think. And the game may reward planning. I can't go into that too much because I'm incapable of planning effectively. So what I did here, I'll go with the Gloucester first. I know I have to get some taxes together to support Gloucester and Rutland. Likewise, Salisbury probably needs a tax too, so I threw one of his cards in. Rutland not being able to get that card that would have increased his command, I don't want to use him. And I positioned things so that I keep a couple Gloucesters towards the end of the activity because I do not want to get trapped down here. I want to be able to slip away if need be. I have enough ships to do so. If he comes down at me, I run away. If he doesn't come down at me, I stay down here and I convert the south. With so many different lords available and so few cards to play, I feel like my choices are easier. Northumberland, I need to get tax money for him. No question. Next turn, he's going to have to pay that taxes. He doesn't have a coin. Oxford, I do want to get some tax money for him. I don't have a lot of taxes throughout the Margaret, Oxford, Somerset combination. So, hey, I'm near Oxford. I'll also use that as perhaps a supply action because I can only tax once. It's already depleted. And then a couple of Margarets to finish things off, allowing me to move in reaction to where the Yorkists are. Of course, both sides are kind of, you know, delaying as much as possible. When you're close, you might need to try to go first. But when you're not close to the other person, you want to give them as much time to kind of expose their strategy as you can. All right, I don't think much of excitement's going to happen, so I'm going to pull away. As I said, Gloucester's got to go first, though. If I've been fucking this up, check this. Check influence. Several things call for a check of influence. You spend an influence point. You can spend additional to add to your chance. Only parlay costs for ways, yeah. So I have been doing it correctly. So I can try to tax London, because I have a supply chain going back there, as easily as I can tax Calais. So London's 2 spaces away, Calais is 1 away. I'm in some danger of losing London, so I think I want to tax that first. All right, so what happened? Gloucester ends up combining with Rutland, taking control of Dover. Salisbury prepares himself, whatever. Northumberland just trying to make himself survivable. Oxford prepares the forces for movement. Margaret marches down to London and takes it. And this is where I think I may have cheated. Margaret ends up taxing London on her last card after converting it. And I'm not sure that London was not... I think London should have been depleted before Gloucester. Whatever. I'm leaving it be. let Margaret have the extra coins. The extra coins aren't going to matter. She would have been able to pull, I don't know. I don't know. She needs the extra coins to some extent. And the growth phase is back here. So she has a total now of 7, 8 coins. 3 of that would have been there. So 5. And we'd be using up 3 and then cutting here and cutting close. So I might have had to shift my movement or do something else if that was exhausted after Gloucester's turn. But if I fucked it up, you know, whatever. There's extra money lying around. Okay, fine. You know, because what happened was Gloucester fled over here, putting him further away from Margaret's big army. This was on his last card, and put himself in a position where he's no longer as close to her. He's not going to get trapped and caught in there. He doesn't have the great ships, so he doesn't have the ability to sail anywhere in England, which is kind of a big deal. It makes escaping a little bit more tricky. And getting wedged in Devon and Cornwall, that was what went wrong before. So let's see what happens now. But yeah, Margaret has a highway to travel along, which allows her to move a little bit more quickly. That gets us to the tides. Lancastrian, 2 Lancastrian points for North and Wales. London cancels out Calais. I get Harlech. Hey, we're turning the tide. We're turning the tide. This is a big deal. But cities beats out towns. There's a capability card in play, the council member. Yeah, we're starting to generate more points. And this is a gain Lord's influence turn again, which means the 4, 7 here, we're looking at 2, 4, 8 more for the Lancastrians. So now they've taken the lead, which it feels like they should have been able to do, right? Like it feels like they're winning the war. They should be ahead. So maybe that situation that I'm worried about happening isn't going to happen. But you never knows. And it's still something I worry about, is the idea of, like, if things had gotten a little further along, it would make sense Margaret gives up at that point when it's further along, if the victory check was low enough or whatever. But what wouldn't make sense is that she is progressively getting more and more influence in the net value, yet doesn't quite break 0 and gives up when winning the war and slowly conquering more, or slowly converting more and more of the country to her side. That just wouldn't make sense. And I feel like there's something, a few of the choices made are the problem here. One of them is the victory check doesn't drop. Okay. Because the victory check dropping would make sense for the exhaustion aspect of that might be an argument for why the war would end, even though somebody isn't completely defeated. But the other thing is that there's a fixed end to each of these 3 wars. And, you know, if you can't get the IP marker on your side, you lose. Well, now the Yorkists are in the position where they're like, wow, now we have to do something to turn the tide around. We weren't realizing just how far it was going to spin in the Lancastrian decision. Again, not enough planning, but yeah, so we might be open to fighting a final battle, and we might prepare for that on the next turn. At the very least, we're in a location where we can muster, and well. We no longer have a lord down there, though, that we could gain. The best we can do is Edward here, which is not trivial to get to. Anyway, I think that's probably it, at least until daylight hours. I might still be awake in daylight hours. I kind of hope I'm going to sleep, but it feels... again, this clan versus clan fight. Resource expenditure competition is is a taxing thing, because it means a lot of the effort that I put in, usually earlier in the evening, I have to wait until, 3 in the morning to play. Here it is, very, very late on Tuesday. Did one of those things that, I would have, that makes me feel like I should run downstairs, down the basement, and tell my wife, you should be proud of me, I did this. I went out and mailed the extra game that I got from GMT because of my own mistakes, and also bought some stuff at the supermarket, made it back home. I've got nobody to be proud of me, and it's not going to help over over online. It's just, there's that something that's missing, that being able to say that. And it's weird. I would never say this to other people whose approval I was looking for, right? Like with my dad, I wouldn't be like, you should be proud of me, I did this, but I was so explicit with it with my wife that it was kind of funny. And I probably did it in a lesser version in previous relationships, but it became this silly little thing where, like, I'd order something online and I'd run downstairs and be like, you should be proud of me, I did something. Anyway, I am really fatigued because I've been basically awake during daylight hours, which is really weird. I also went out and walked down and up the hill, which physically is more taxing than it should be nowadays, just because I'm in such shitty shape. But here we are on a 6-card turn, ready to keep pushing through. We're in a levy phase. I'll probably just get the levy done, and I've had a lot of raid to do, which is why it's so late. Made myself polo sausage and potatoes, which I haven't done in a long time. If Yorkist favor London, it is not. Add a second favor there. London changes favor only by event or pillage. This is kind of a cool thing, but it's not available. This levy, each Yorkist levy troops action can add up to 2 militia. I do not like that one. Just like I don't like the beloved Warwick. Escape ship. Oh, yay. In case things go terrible. Parliamentary truce. I can prohibit attacks by the Yorkists. Not really worried about that right now. They seem to be trying to evade me. I'm hoping to be able to capture, to trap them down in Cornwall again. But maybe it's more important. Look, I'm getting the points on my side. Maybe it's more important to grab the South. As long as they're on the run, if I keep the important sections point-wise, well, screw them, man. They're going to lose, All right. Oh, no. I hope I didn't screw up. I have enough coins on Gloucester to pay for both him and Rutland, so I'm okay there. I look over here. Oh, no. I did screw up here. Oh, no, I have tons of coins here. I'm just not seeing I don't know what's happening, my vision. Okay, so we're going to be able to pay everything off. I'll come back afterwards instead of going through the whole list, because even though I've been doing that recently, I don't think that's really particularly helpful. Come to a hard decision. I decided to keep all the Yorkists on the board, which is kind of an iffy thing, because I'm going to need to tax, but I have things like Calais that I can expend influence to tax on in order to keep Gloucester in the field anyway, but paying for Rutland seems important. However, I think I may have to force a fight. So even though I ran over here, I'm like, I don't know, man. So I think I'm going to prepare for war and, maybe move in that direction. I was hoping the IPs would be better in my direction. I look over at the Lancastrians, and my situation is such that I can hold this big triple threat together, which is good. I have plenty of money for that. So I don't know how much plenty. Yeah, I mean, it runs out so fast. I'm spending 3 a turn, but I do have capability to get more money at Wells, so whatever. I think keeping a big force together to try to wipe out the Yorkists is a good idea. However, Northumberland has good points. Yeah, I'm a little iffy as to how long I can last there, but I can get myself some more points from this Neville at Worcester and get myself as far as here, some more influence, and put my, keep things in a situation where I've got the balance in my favor. But then I come to Jasper Tudor. First of all, he's the one holding Westmoreland, so I can't tax Westmoreland if I don't keep him in the game. That's a problem. What's Northumberland going to do for money? He's got $1 coming up, which will pay for next turn. But then he needs $1 for this turn, or for the third turn, and that won't be available kind of no matter what, because you can only do your own vassals. So it really doesn't matter what I do with Jasper Tudor. Maybe I should be getting rid of Northumberland, but I'm getting the point that I pay for influence to keep him on the board. He's got a decent sized force, and he's a counterweight to Salisbury, so he seems of value to me. It seems like a no-brainer to keep him on the board, but if I disband him, he'll show up again here in time for me to use him. That's a hard call. Maybe I take that point back too. But yeah, as to Jasper, I would have to do taxation. And it's going to cost me a couple of taxes to get him there. Now again, he could operate through Westmoreland, but he doesn't have a sea route up there. He has a ship, but not the great ships. So that's all very hard. Huh. Wait, what if I go through Bristol? Can I reach all the way up through Bristol? Almost, not quite. Anyway. Yeah, I'm thinking about disbanding both. Northumberland, because I can bring him in at the very end of the game and get points for him. Jasper Tudor, because it's going to take me cards to utilize him. But there go 2 of my production points, right? I'm not getting points for Wales and the North for controlling them. I'm only getting points for parking in them. And if this force is going to try to bring one of the Yorkist forces to a fight, then that's more problematic. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to no, because he's the guy, I won't be able to bring him back for any use if I don't disband him. Yeah, I think I'm going to disband both of them. Jasper's not coming back, but Northumberland shows up here, which is a nice spot for him to be. But it does put me in a position where I'm like no longer as strong as I want it to be. Ouch. Interesting things happen when you're preparing for war. So I spread out a bunch of cards I wanted to do. The Yorkists never wait because I want to be able to move more effectively in the north through my own territories to be able to capture it as a whole and try to swing the point total there. Okay. Fair Arbiter, that gives me an additional lordship right away. So it's kind of free. Yeah, I don't remember, I didn't look it up right now. I don't remember if it was in this game or another game in the series where I did look that up and it was the way I'm expressing it. It may have changed between the 2 games. So maybe I better look that one up. This is York 22. It's one of the problems because these cards can't express all the special cases. So the question is, do I have lordship now for this levy, or is it only, for future ones? And again, I have looked this up at other times. It's lord at a friendly locale, I am. He could start the levy phase in a neutral, take a parlay to convert it. That would advance it. This doesn't actually say. But I am going to... The last time I looked it up in a different game, I believe it was explicit about that. This is one of the problems. with this very parsimonious style of cards, and in some cases the rules themselves, is, other than when Volko does it, there's almost always going to be a little bit of question coming in. And I don't know what it is about him, but he's just like such a natural for expressing things in this sort of way. It's still not great, right? Like, you read something and you're like, well, which do you mean? And now you got to look it up and this, that, and the other. But here I wasn't able to get an answer, but I'll go with the one that I got from a different game. Between these two, that's going to give me a higher influence. That's going to make it more likely that I can convert an area next to me. There wasn't a hell of a lot else I could do. I grabbed some carts because I had too much provender. I grabbed a ship with the last one because I got nothing to do. I really have nothing to do. I could raise more troops, except I'm in an exhausted space, right? So I can't levy troops where I am. Yeah, lots of problems. Now, I probably could do this, add up to 2 militia extra. I probably could have grabbed a couple of militia, but militia just suck. And what I found out as well, there was a card that allows you to muster mercenaries. They kind of suck as bad as militia in terms of their offensive capabilities. But they don't get hurt, so you can take losses on them more easily. Over here, well, I did a number of things. So the first, I assigned these 2 cards. I figured I want the extra command point because Rutland is pretty damn useless without it. Although I'm only getting 6 cards this turn, so I may not even use a Rutland card. I may just move him along with Gloucester. But in addition to that, I rolled to try to get Falkenberg, and I failed. I spent 2 influence on that. 2 more to get him over on Gloucester. Gloucester took the culverins and falconets for better combat capability. This doesn't actually help me. So I don't feel like my intention had been grab a noble there, grab this, grab the culverins and falconets, and get myself I believe it's a longbow and a militia from the city. And I didn't get that. But a vassal is better than troops are. And it's just that simple. So I'm not in as good a shape as I would have liked to have been, but I'm where I am. And now we go over to the now rather sparse-looking Lancastrians. I had a whole bunch of lords just a moment ago. Problem here is I don't have a great plan. I mean, my plan was to get my influence points up, but now that's looking iffier. But I also don't have troops everywhere, so it's not like it's harder to bully people. I can try to bring this force into play against here. And if I'm doing that, what I need, first of all, I check my provender. It's not great, but I have a lot of carts. I have a lot of ships, so I have a fair amount of total mobility. Of course, it's going to be hard for me to get to anywhere naval. I'll just skim along the highways instead, which means carts are important. But what else is important? Well, if I'm going to fight with troops, I've got my forces all at what I consider maximum size. Any bigger than that, I'm doing double feeding with that lord. So that's kind of painful. So instead, what I think I shall do is I could parlay. That's always an option. I'm not going to go for any additional lords. There's only one that I could take, and he couldn't show up here. Now I could bring him in at Harlech or, up here. I can't bring him where I am. And he would generate points for me under those circumstances. What's he like? He only has 1 coin. He wouldn't have any great tax capabilities. Harlech's not a great place to tax if you're not, Jasper. So, yeah. So what I'm trying to do is get my forces in the best shape. So now I look around and see, hey, what possible vassals do I have? And I see 1. Everyone else is kind of not aligned. And there's no one near me that I could align. So there's this guy, but that he doesn't exist in this scenario because Oxford has replaced him. So I've got one lord I could grab. I'm not thrilled with this because it's going to cost me influence to do, but I have one person who's good at influence, that's Margaret, and we will spend the extra point on that and fail. Well, if we're going to fail once, we might as well fail twice, right? That used her up. Now she's got a bigger force. For these others, there's not much choice. My cards are filled up. I don't want to grab troops. I'll grab a ship here and I guess some additional cards, because what the hell. And then over here, I've got as much ship as I can. I've got as much card as I can. There's just nothing that I can do that I want to do. I'll grab myself 4 more cards. So now I've got boatloads of cards. I can haul tons and tons of stuff. If I'm near a port, I've actually got quite a bit of supply capability. And I don't have to be all that near with all those cards. So I've got a really, really powerful position from them. And that's where we're going to go into the campaign side of things. I don't know if I'll be back up tonight. I'm awfully fatigued. I did things today, man. I did, well, not much. I mean, seriously, you know, I used to go for a walk like this 3 times a week easily. Well, before that, I used to go, I mean, this is just no big deal. Like when my wife first died, I was going for walks like this nearly every day for a while, and some very long ones as well. But now that I got Raid, and I can't go for walks at night. I just can't do it. I don't know why. There's just no pleasure in it. Like, I'm too far from sort of the heart of the city to enjoy a walk at night. If the area near the university was kind of interesting, I might deal with the 25-minute walk down to that area. But it really isn't. There's nothing exciting there. And downtown is a little past the university is fine, but downtown is really where things start getting kind of interesting. And that's a good 40 minutes each way. So, you know. And then there's the hill. The hill definitely gets in my way. Sometimes I regret being up here. I definitely didn't feel that way earlier, but now more and more I'm thinking, geez, man, it would be a lot easier to get into like life again if I was like in an area where there was life around me and not just of the deer variety. I can't remember the right word for deer. Like the Latin for it. I just can't remember it. Damn me. Of course, I had to look it up online. And I'm disappointed. Because just after I put this off, I'm like, well, there's ovine and bovine. But it's dovine. No. The root is cervus or cervus. So I guess it's cervine. It really should be dovine. All right, here we are. Either very late Wednesday night or early Thursday morning. I don't know which. Been playing a hell of a lot of Raid. I gotta say, I mean, I woke up at like, 7, 8 o'clock. So I don't know what's happening. I slept like 12 hours and try to figure out what to do because I'm in a campaign stage now. And I got a couple of issues. First of all, Salisbury's off on his own. He's probably pretty safe. Gonna worry a little bit about Gloucester and Rutland, but we're in the behind points wise. So we may actually want to set ourselves up for the fight, right? We definitely gathered forces to do so. So I think that's where I'm aiming at. It's a little hard to remember even after only just one day. I also have tax issues to deal with. Gloucester has $1 between the two of them. Now, obviously I could get Rutland killed or something, but you don't want to count on that. Salisbury's okay. He doesn't need to tax. But what do I tax down here? I don't know, Calais, I guess. Yeah, I can do that. That's not his home though, so he's going to have to spend influence to do it, which puts me further in the hole. In order to get the best advantages out of what I'm doing, I think what I'm going to do is 3 Gloucesters. I put a Rutland first in order to collect supplies and whatnot. Yeah, I got room for 1 more supply. Got shipping. I don't know how and where I'm going to do things yet, but taking a pause before I actually have to move Gloucester, then another supply pause, then 2 actions by him. I threw a Salisbury in at the end. That could be used in a couple of different ways. And I would have liked to have had a couple of his cards in order to move up into the north and start taking it. But I don't know that that's what I want to do. I may be in a position where I'm like trying to triangulate onto the Lancastrians. So now we'll figure out what they're doing. Mixture of issues here. First of all, I don't have enough coinage to keep everybody alive for the rest of the game. There's no more waste turns, so I'm not going to get reset. So 3 turns, 3 lords is going to cost me 9 just to keep these guys on the field. Anyone else comes in, they at least pay for 1 turn for themselves. And it looks like I can't bring Jasper Tudor in, who's the only person who pays for more. So there's a possibility that I might want to get into a taxing zone. London is not a taxing zone until after that grow phase, which basically makes it useless because there's no need to tax here. That means my only taxable areas are Wells, wherever Norfolk's from, which is down in Arundel. That's not trivial to get to. And Oxford and London are used up. So if I want to keep this entire force in the game, I have to move to Wells or near it. I mean, I actually have a linkage going there, so I could tax it. So yeah, I probably want to do that taxation first. The other thing I might be interested in doing, though, is trying to gain control of the south. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 areas in the south that if I get control of them, I'll start channeling this closer and closer to myself. And that way I won't have to spend the movement actions to engage the Yorkists. I can just force them to have lost the war by default. And in a way that I believe in, which is that the points are moving in my favor, the Yorkists would give up the cause in a believable fashion, even without a battle. How do I program this out? Well, Somerset could lose Wells, so I want him to go first. See, this is the big risk here, is conceivably, if the Yorkists knew what situation I was in, but again, we're behind the screens here. If they knew my situation, if this was an open game, they might well notice how bad it is and say, huh, if I can take Wells, I can force the Lancastrians to actually cover the ground and fight me. But just to be sure, I'm going to start off with a Somerset. What are we at? 6 cards. That's a double tax. I'll put an Oxford in for taxation. We'll put a Margaret in for movement. Her movement could get her 2 spaces, but maybe I want to influence things on the way. There are 4 spaces that I need to influence, unfortunately, which is a lot. Which means Oxford may try. Shit. It's just hard. It's hard to come up with the points. So let's say Margaret tries to influence Guildford, then moves. Then I spend some food, and I don't have a whole hell of a lot. I'll do an Oxford, because that won't hurt. That's 4 cards. So Margaret's influenced Guildford. Margaret's moved to Rochester. Oxford influences Rochester, grabs supplies from somewhere. My boats aren't really helping me because I'm cut off from the coast right now. So I'm not thrilled with what I'm getting food-wise there. Margaret could influence Canterbury and then move down here. Or she could move to Canterbury and get there. That's 2, 4, 5. I might as well do another Margaret. She gives me the most flexibility of all my cards. Play these out. I'm in the middle of clan versus clan spending a frenzy in Raid. But I'm running low on resources, and I want to be there for the last hour or so. So I've got an hour before that I'm kind of burning by playing this. I have been playing nonstop for all the few waking hours I've got. I'm a little hazy, things didn't make a lot of sense here. I drew a Rutland card. Now he has an extra command that gives me a 2 instead of a 1. He has extra influence, so I went with him for the taxation. He's actually better than Gloucester at it at this point. So I got 3 coins for him. He can't move my forces, so I gathered some provender. I used shipping to do that. I've got more than I can carry. This is not what I intended, but I don't remember what I intended. And it's one of the problems with pre-programming like this. It's like, geez, what the fuck did I mean? You know, and it's not the fact that I'm switching hats. I have this much trouble when I'm playing opposed. On to Somerset. Now I don't know what he's up to. Gloucester's in an interesting position. A big 3 movement. I've got enough food. I've got my forces. My intention was to hit London. 1, 2, 3. I make it. I think that's what I'm going to do. I've got taxation in case I need to survive. Although, honestly, I don't know how big a deal it would be. One of these food goes away before I can move. And now we hit a fight. Is it optimal? No, but I'm losing this race. I have to do a fight. Fortunately for the Yorkists, not only do they have less lords, but they have less cards. And Margaret plays a suspicion, pays a couple of influence. She is dispatching Rutland. Getting rid of Gloucester changes things a lot. There's no lieutenant. Edward, although presumably the person they're trying to make king, is just not available. There's no reason to bring him into play because he's just not that good a commander as the Earl of March. And in this scenario, he's not Edward IV, which means that since York was lost and now Warwick's lost, there's really no one who's a great commander. Gloucester is the best that I have left. He's the only remaining lieutenant left. Anyway, Rutland's gone, he disbands, and that puts Gloucester in a much, much worse position. We have a couple of issues. Oops, 1, 2. One is the leeward battle line here, which has missile fire, but I need to throw Gloucester's extra culverins and falconets. He got caught by surprise. That card got played after the approach situation, so he can't just leave the battlefield at this point to try to keep himself alive. So he's in actual danger of getting knocked out, and it's a much bigger deal. You know, I'm not that worried about Rutland showing up as the remaining heir. And if he shows up as king, he doesn't have another card or anything. Just King Edmund. Whatever. So yeah, we've got a nasty fight here with 3 lords facing 1, which is not good. Is that allowed? Good question. I know in some of the scenarios, in some of the games in the series, when there's only 1 opponent, you're only allowed 2 enemy lords. So I'm going to look that up because I may have been misplaying that, or maybe it's not come up, I don't know. It's the fairly standard, it's what I consider the default position. I think it was Almoravid that, and I don't remember who was in Siege's So in sieges, you start off with only one lord on each side to begin with when you're doing a city assault. And then that increments. So I think it was in battlefields, like if only one lord is present, you can only bring one flanking lord with you. But here, it's sort of that default situation. So we've got like 5 hits on the Lancastrians and 16 on the Yorkists. That's a problem. He's going to go down. I haven't put my valor markers out. And the missile phase ends. Gloucester is able to survive barely with his retinue. He's out of valor. Actually, hold on. She's going to spend a valor. If this lord's retinue fails an armor roll, you may instead route a unrouted man-at-arms. That's what I did. I rolled on the 4s, but I might as well spend a valor to try to get more firepower. Oh, well. Nothing great there. Now we go to the actual melee phase, and we're looking at, what, 4? Versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I believe militia count. Yeah. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 25 hits on Gloucester. He's got no chance, you know. What I could have done was after Rutland ran or hid, I could have done a flee. So this was kind of stupid to fight this battle out. Oh well. Ended with no losses for Margaret. She took everything on her retainer. The Yeoman of the Crown is really powerful. But Gloucester is, of course, gone. 3 through 6, he's dead. He survives. But 2 IP do swing hands, and we are in a Lancastrian area, so we actually gain, we capture the carts and the provender. The thing that means is that the error of my turn, not fleeing ahead of time, I didn't pay a price for that. I would be in the exact same position. You don't go into exile or anything like that. I'm not available till the end of the game. The only thing I have left I can bring on is Salisbury could try to bring the Earl of March into play. This war is over. It's just watching it die at this point is the only question, you know. Salisbury is going to be able to do things to try to hide and prevent the war. He could even leave the map just to end it early, and I may do that because there's absolutely no advantage to trying to keep this up. Like, it doesn't help, it doesn't change things. The points that I have between wars doesn't change the matter at all. It's just each war is factored on its own. So what we've got here is really 2 Lancastrian victories in a row, which I believe means the Yorkists will win the 3rd one, because, you know, historically the guys who won the first 2 lost the 3rd one. Is that right? Yeah, because Warwick's rebellion was against King Edward. Okay. And yeah, I'll play out the rest of the cards. There's not a hell of a lot left to do. I do have to feed. I didn't have a whole hell of a lot of food here. Something in me says, like, something about this game makes me want there to be, like, troop advancement or something. I don't know what it is. It's just something that makes me feel like, oh, I should be checking their you know, experience after each battle and see if they improve or whatever. I have no idea why the game does that to me, but it does. Is it because it's medieval? I don't know. Is it because of the little wooden pieces? I mean, just something feels like units should advance. And it really doesn't make much sense. Anyway, I got to make checks for these guys. This military victory has changed my attitude in terms of strategy. So I'm sending Oxford out on his own to kind of conquer the south in an expensive sort of way. And Margaret and Somerset are going to head up to try to deal with Salisbury. Nothing changes rapidly. Gets me a lord in the south. That's worth a point each turn. But I'm not able to convert everything, even using Margaret to, do parlays. I just don't have that many commands. I have 2 commands per leader, and that's not sufficient. I have another Margaret, which I could start moving her, but yeah, this was sort of the most efficient way in terms of cards that I could start converting the south. I've used up all my influence, but I'm in a position where I'm going to be gaining influence more rapidly than the Yorkists are. So it's not like Salisbury is going to be able to hide and change the tide of the overall war. I think. We shall see. Do the tides of war. Lord in the north, Lord in the south. Domination. Nobody dominates anything. London cancels out Calais. It's 1 point for Harlech. Most favored in cities and towns, that's 3 more points. 1, 2, 3. Assuming I have the numbers right. We have a capability, I think. We do. And, oh geez, I forgot about my haywains. Does that help us? I grabbed a supply. Do I have a path. 1, 2, 3 wagons. That would have been 2, 3, 4. Instead of the 2 that I grabbed, I would have 2 more. So I could have grabbed more provender. I don't know if I can carry it all, but probably with those haywains. Okay. I did the conversion of Rochester, which is why this got reduced. And I think there's nothing else special this turn, unless somebody wants to discard cards, which maybe they do. Yeah, I don't think so. So this moves over to the next levy phase, and that's where we're at. And I would say you can probably call this as Lancastrian victory. I am going to play it out at least a little bit further. Salisbury can choose to just say, you know what, I'm done, and disband via the Lord's pay option, which might not be a bad choice, but I think I am a little curious whether or not maybe you can convert the north more quickly than Margaret and Oxford can convert the south and get down there. Maybe he can get it so that the points swing. I don't think so, because here's the thing. I mean, Calais can be swung. He's not in range to do it. He doesn't have the boats to do it. So there's really not a lot in his favor. I forgot about the Yorkists never wait, although I don't think it mattered much. Yeah, I think I moved 1, 2. I wouldn't have had to do. Huh. Oh well. It's not a big deal. All right, sometime later, guess it's Thursday, huh? I don't know anymore. Unfortunately, I think I'm sick again. And there's absolutely, like, I've had no contact with people in quite some time, so I don't know how I got another head cold. No clue. Usually, as long as I don't leave the house, I should be completely invulnerable to anything like a human, cold. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I've been unwell for a week. Well, for more than a week, for most of a month. But I don't know where it's coming from. I'm feeling that same kind of stuffy head, cotton in the brain, whatever. Anyway, we ended up winning the clan spendathon. And I tried to go to sleep after that and just kind of couldn't. What with the debate information and whatnot, I just thought I'd I'd come up and play a little bit more of this. Now, we're about to draw some cards, and I actually thought about something. You know, I treat this as hidden information. It's hidden trackable information, the number of cards your opponent has. Because even behind the screen and everything, you get to know how many they've flipped up as events. You might not know how many they discard. That would be the one difference. Anyway, let's draw a couple of these. I have my own thoughts on the hidden trackable, which you might have heard of. This campaign, Devon at Exeter parlays for no influence cost and automatic success. Wow, that's pretty damn specific. Well, Devon's not in the game anymore, and so I'm just going to ditch that because it's definitely not available, though. It's in effect. Remove Lancastrian favor from London, or if neutral, placed Yorkist favor there. Okay. And then over here, new Act of Parliament. Yorkist parlay takes entire command card. Yeah. It's going to make Salisbury's job a lot harder, and the suspicion cards come back up, which means I could, you know, if I fought Salisbury, I could actually target him and knock him off the map rather than fight him. You can use that even when there's only one lord in the battle, which is kind of interesting. So, like, a weak lord could, well, a weak army under a influential lord can do quite a bit. We got to pay. So we remember everything. And I got to do that. Shit. I wanted to move to the next thing, but, you know, I'm doing the mechanics of this rather than that. Vassals. Norfolk. I don't want to pay for Norfolk. Do I? He provides Margaret with a lot of oomph, doesn't he? But I'm going to get rid of him. And he's somewhere off the board here. Kind of don't like doing it, but yeah, it's not worth paying an influence each turn. I'm going to win via influence more likely than be able to catch Salisbury. So even though I'm sending Margaret up this way, it's really to capture territories, I think. At which point I have to consider, you know, hey, I should avoid cities and towns and be targeting fortresses because I could get that extra point per turn and whatnot. I don't know. Lords. All right. Yorkists definitely have to keep their lord on the map or else they lose the game immediately. And what about here? Do I want to pay 3 influence 2 turns in a row? Yeah. I think it's still worth it. Margaret's the iffy thing here, but she does still bring some combat capability, especially with the Yeoman of the Crown advantage. So, yeah, we'll keep her in play there. Exiles and vassals, nothing. We took the one. Oh, boy. Now, some of my salami may have gone bad, and I ate some of that, and that may be part of this, but some of it feels like something that very definitely is not food related. It's like sniffles. So we're going to be at muster. Is there any reason to continue this? Yeah, I don't know. We'll play out at least this one turn and then make a decision. I don't know what I was planning on, but I have a lordship of 4. I have twice paid to try to bring Edward of March into play. And he's just like, no. We'll try him again, but this is really making me feel like, you know, I'm not going to... All right, now he finally comes in. I've got 1 more pip left because of the Fair Arbiter card, which gives me that extra thing. But this is really convincing me that, yeah, I think it's time to just give this war up. Just because of the things that I'm losing out on, right? I'm going to have trouble parlaying. I'm going to have trouble doing anything. I think this one's over. So I'm going to call this here and load it up. What about a wrap type situation? Yeah. So we started off jockeying for points, right? Trying to get the advantage on the points. And honestly, I think that's really important. If you can get the edge in points, you force the other person to either come after you or eventually lose the game, right? Because you'll just keep driving it up if you're producing more points each turn. However, we then went into a period where, one side was getting the advantage, the other side would launch an attack. People would think that they had an advantage in terms of wiping out an enemy lord, an important one for the next battle. And it's like, yeah, let's fight this out. And sometimes the battle would go in a direction that I didn't assume it would. Battles are a risky thing in this system. Sometimes you can look at it and say, well, I'm guaranteed to win. Yeah, you might be, but you might also take a significant amount of losses and be setting yourself up for a worse situation. And we had that kind of flexibility, or that kind of swinginess happening where, and I don't remember which side was which, but where one side launched an attack or defended against an attack, won it, but was so battered that lords coming back from exile were a real threat and able to knock them back on their ass. And we had a pretty intensive and exciting period during that. Now, attrition of lords is a big deal here, especially as we get to the end of the scenario as a whole. And this is one thing where the scenario end does actually make a lot of difference. Let's say I wasn't playing with the scenario end. Like I've suggested, hey, maybe the scenario shouldn't just end. Maybe you should have to get to a victory check. Here is an example where I would say, you know what? It is right that this scenario is coming to an end because Salisbury is unable to gain the kind of gains that he needs at the end of this 3-year period. And that is the reason it's ending. And that is actually a reasonable reason, as opposed to my fantasy arguments saying that, Margaret would be in great shape, be gaining points each turn, but not enough to be able to swing the IP marker around. I think it's more likely that you'll see this kind of scenario where it's a believable ending, that Salisbury's like, look, even Edward won't join me in his fight. And Gloucester and Rutland, they're in exile. They're not coming back. What am I to do? How about I leave for a few years? Anyway, so I'm not necessarily suggesting that some of the changes that I suggest may actually, or have suggested, may actually be more negative than positive. In this case, I think it's a very good thing that I'm like, yeah, I can't win, I give up. And I can't win because of this barrier. If that barrier is not there, I can play this out a lot longer because I've got all this room to the victory check. Now, if the victory check is down here because of war weariness or something like that, that becomes a different matter. Then I might still be in that same argument, right? Which, one of the things I was advocating for was, instead of a hard end, keep dropping the victory check marker each year. Drop it like 5 points a year or something like that. I don't know what they do in the Henry VI scenario. It might actually be dependent upon the scenario, in my view, because some scenarios might have led to shorter, might have been a shorter war to begin with. But let's look at this one. So, yeah, so this goes down. It's turns 6 to 10, yeah. So this goes down 5 points a year, which feels about right. And I don't remember what I looked at. There was another one here. Warwick's also had it. And again, it's 5 points a turn. 5 points a year. That feels about right. And just keep dropping it. Don't put a limit on that. Eventually the war weariness might get to a ridiculous level. You might want to make it so that it stops at 15 or 10 or something like that, so that there is actually a significant difference in the overall acceptability. It's a difference that you can easily engineer. The game has enough luck in it that this does swing. Even if two people are playing, optimally or whatever, they're not going to just keep it within a couple of points of where it is. A battle might happen. Even if a battle doesn't happen, some unlucky facets might come into play. And optimal play is a lot to ask of people. Although, you know what? We have never seen someone pillage except in that sort of first year of the first scenario, where I had real trouble with it. And since then, I've kind of gotten a grasp on it, been able to handle my money and my food as two separate things. And they are in all the Levian campaign games. Anyway, that's enough babble about this. Let's send this one up. I guess I will set up the third war. And I would expect to see Warwick make another return, just because I think he's bulletproof.